Right guys, here we are. We are doing our mobility live today. So you will feel, if you do feel a little bit stiff or you feel a bit lethargic today, this will get you through it, and you guarantee it, you will feel a lot, what's the word? A lot more relaxed. I can't even think at the moment right now. So we're gonna go straight into it. We're gonna start with our hips. We're gonna work our way up our body through our upper back to our shoulders as well. But we're mostly hitting our hips as they tend to be the problem area. So we're gonna start in our hips 90-90 position. So before we start, make sure you do have a bit of room and maybe a soft mat, something comfortable to sit on. You can go in bare feet or socks, it doesn't matter. I personally prefer going in socks as it's a lot easier than having shoes going around. So in the legs 90-90, we're gonna have our legs in a V shape. So legs 90-90 is that 90-degree posture. So keeping our chest forward, you can drop your hands behind to support, and we're gonna drop our knees. Keep the heels where they are, but you're gonna drop both knees down to one side. And as you drop them there, they should be in that perfect 90-degree angle, whether it's the back of the knee, the front of the hip. So with these now, what you're gonna do is you're gonna keep that chest pointing forward and keep the heels on the ground, pick the knees up, rotate, putting the back down to the other side, nice and slow. We're just gonna go 10 each side. But we gotta be strict with ourselves. Don't let our chest rotate and go with that front leg. We gotta stay pointing forward. Now you'll notice with these ones, you will probably start sliding forward a little bit, so you will have to reset every now and again. So keep going side to side. Once you get through 10, we're gonna stay on one side, but make sure you're getting both knees down towards the ground. The more you lean back, the easier it gets because you open up that hip capsule. You have a bit more space to work with. But now if we start going a little bit more upright, well, it's gonna be a lot tougher. So whether you move the hands in towards your bum or take your hands off and put them out in front. So that's 10 there each side. Everything with mobility is slow and controlled. We gotta be in control of every piece or every second of our movement. Otherwise, we're not really being effective with it or being efficient. So what we're gonna do here, we're gonna get into that 90-90, back into one side. You're gonna pivot on this back hand. So now we're pointing over that front leg. So make sure this knee is in front of that hip. So it's really, really technical when we get into these sort of stuff. But once you kind of get to know it, it'll be fairly simple. So we have that 90-degree. We're gonna keep this back knee down, but we're gonna lift this back foot up and we're actually gonna swing it over the top. Now you're gonna try and swing it over the top. You're not gonna do it, but you're gonna try to lift it off the ground. So keep your abs nice and tight. So big breath in, keep your abs tight, and you're just gonna rotate that foot over the top. And you're actually gonna feel your whole leg rotating with that. Same again, we're gonna go for 10. And you might even feel the inside of your hip, or right at that hip joint. You may feel that cramp coming on. If you do feel that cramp, or if it does cramp, just drop it, take a second, come up out of that, rotate away from it, make it a little bit easier. But if not, you can keep going. You're picking it up, hold for a second, then bring it back down. And it should be silent when you lift it off the floor. So by the end of this session, you should be feeling a lot freer. There's the word I was looking for at the start. A lot freer. Not as stiff. So once we get through 10, what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna swap to the other side, so we get an extra rep in. But now what we do to one side, we gotta do to the other. And we do have a lot of different exercises in this position here in the 90-90. So rotate over that front leg, so that chest over that front knee. We're gonna pick up that foot, bring it back down nice and slow. You shouldn't hear it touch the floor. So nice and slow, pick it up. We're going for another 10 reps. And we're focusing on internal rotation here. Now you'll notice your right hip or your right leg is going to be a little bit different to your left leg. You could be that odd person that is actually quite similar on both sides, where they both have the same range of motion, same strength, same everything. It's not often you get that, but when you do, you know, makes you feel good about yourself. But if you don't worry. You're gonna have differences. I have loads of differences. My left side leg is slightly behind, but it's a work in progress. So once you get through our 10 reps, we're gonna swap to the other side again. We're not gonna do the same one again. So freeze once you get to that side. Now what we're gonna do, instead of just lifting that back foot up, we're gonna lift the back ankle, or the back ankle and the back knee. together. So it's the whole leg that comes up, like a dog peeing against the fire hydrant. But the most important thing with this one is make sure we don't lean and then re-lean, because if we lean and then re-lean, we actually stay in the same position, or pretty much we're not actually testing that joint anymore. So when I say lean but don't re-lean, I mean you're gonna lean first of all to get that level of that difficulty. And as soon as we pick that leg up, some people have a tendency to lean again, lean a little bit more. Don't let that happen. So find the midpoint of those two leans and stay there. Keep the abs nice and tight. That's now your strong platform where you can now afford to lift that leg up and not compromise anything else. So we're going for 10 reps here. Nice and slow. May cramp up and may not. Let's swap it over. Other side, get another 10 reps in. And we'll start speeding up. So just as we start, it gets a little bit slow as you bring all these new exercises in. And the way to make this more difficult is if you lean to the side a little bit more, you're going to get higher. We're opening up the hip joint. Now, if we get a little bit more upright and actually rotate in towards that back leg, well, you notice it's going to be a lot harder. So you can play around with it, but be honest with yourself. If you are going to do it and you are going to make it more difficult, make sure you can do it. And if you can only get a fraction off the ground, regress, work on the other one before that, and then work your way up. My left side, slightly lagging behind, doesn't have that same range of motion in the internal rotation. So we're bringing our hips through all these different movement patterns to try and free up these hips and grind out that extra range of motion. So once you get through our 10, swap back to the other side. We focus on this back leg already. We're going to look at this front leg, and this one's probably the hardest one. This one's external rotation. So we have our internal rotation of the back leg, external here in this front leg. What we're going to do here, we did the back foot, now we're going to do the front foot. Keep this front knee down, but just lift that front foot up. So imagine there's a bit of a lace or a cable tied onto your heel. You're trying to pull that in. So you're lifting that up, then you bring it down. Now you may even have to drop to your elbow to make it a little bit easier, or if not, drop it to your shoulder. If you do drop to your shoulder all the way down, you can actually change that top leg and put it straight, because that can make the hip a bit more comfortable. But see what level you're at, play around with it a little bit. I'm going to go to my elbow, pick it up, see how we go. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to kickstand that hand. Now I'm a little bit more upright, less room for that joint. And I can still pick it up. Now I'm going to go even more upright. Okay, I'm barely getting that off the ground. I'm actually bringing my knee off the ground here. So I'm going to bring the hand back. Now we have that level. So once you get through 10 reps, you're going to feel that inside the thigh, your adductors as well. We're going to swap it over. And you're going to do the exact same thing again, but both sides are going to be slightly different, so just remember that. Now, the only thing about mobility is it can be quite boring sometimes because it's real slow, but it's very relaxing. Sometimes it makes you build up a sweat and it's quite intense. So it should never be easy as such. If it's too easy, well, we're not challenging ourselves and we're never going to progress. If you make it too difficult for ourselves, we're still not going to progress, because we've got to regress that exercise and bring it back a level because we're not ready for it. Now, swap to the other side. We've got 10 each on both sides. You shouldn't be too far ahead if you are. I know I'm stopping every now and again to explain stuff, but if you are a little bit ahead, just wait, take your time, or slow it down through the reps. Now, this time we're going to go knee and ankle together. So, heel comes into the chest. You're not going to make it all the way, but it's just the thought process of it. So as we lift that up, we bring it back down. Same again, depends on how upright we are. If you lean back, it's going to be a lot easier. You have a lot more pull that way. Whereas if you have your whole fist, kickstand that hand, quite upright, it's going to be difficult. But if you actually lift a few fingers off that hand, off the floor, it's going to be even harder. Now you have one finger down, it's going to be harder again. Then if you go no hands, it's going to be harder again. It's going to test everything. It's actually going to test this back hip as well, that internal. So I actually feel a cramp coming along there. So I'm going to hop out of that one. I was too far down. Not at that level yet, but we'll get there. you're gonna feel the inside of that thigh really burning up here. You're gonna swap it over because you got through 10, and if you haven't got through 10, take your time until you got through 10. So you're lifting that front leg up, bring it back down nice and slow. So it's always in control of every part of the movement. So if I was to say pause a certain part of this movement, you'd be able to hold it there. Because when we go slow, we have a lot more control over everything. Where compared to when we go fast, we don't really have that much control. We're actually not getting the benefit of everything. Because when you go fast, you don't have that control, but we also move the rest of the body with it. And when we move the rest of the body, you don't get the full effect of the exercise because other things are compensating for it, so it's actually not working. So once you get through our 10 on that, swap to the other side. This is our last part of this movement once you get through this. So what we're going to do, chest over that front knee. Fix my mic for a second. Chest over that front knee. You're going to cross your arms over your chest. You're going to pin your shoulder blades, and we're actually going to turn it into a hip hinge. So if you imagine you've loads of eggs underneath this leg that's on the ground in front, you're trying to crush them as you come back up. So you're not using your hands. Now, saying that, you can use your hands to make it a little bit easier. So I'd advise for the first one, use your hands to the left. We're going to hinge over, keep the chest up. So if you're shooting a laser beam out of the chest, and from here, the way to get back up is not to push through the hand, it's actually to push the leg down to the ground. You're actually going to feel that glute, you're going to feel that hip working quite a bit. We're going to do 10 reps of this. See how low you can get, but keep the shoulder blades pinned. If you let go of the shoulder blades, well, we're going to drop our chest, we're going to round our upper back. Then we're actually not working the hip as much. See how low you can get. It's going to be difficult, and then push that floor or push that leg into the floor. So you're actually not using any hands. That's just a support leg to stop you losing your balance. Or if you can't get the upright with the hips, well, that's just to help stay in that position. Because if you don't have that upright stance and we have no hand supporting us, well, we're just going to fall over. So that chest is going in between the knee and the ankle. You're hitting that gap and you're pushing that leg in towards the floor. And it is quite tiring. So one more on this side, then we're going to swap it over, and then we'll move it on looking at the hamstrings and a bit more at the hips. So same again, each side may be slightly different. White socks in this black 4 is not helping my socks. Right, so pin the shoulder blades, rotate chest over in between that gap of that ankle and that knee. We're hinging at the hips. Make sure you're hinging and you're not rounding your back. You're pushing down through that leg. And that first one's going to be a little bit of a tester. So each one you can actually get a little bit further. Test the water a little bit. You don't want to go too deep straight away because you're not getting yourself back. So we're not working off timings today. It's all about reps. So we can break it down, explain it. And what we're trying to do with all these exercises, we have the hips, same with the shoulders and the spine. We're bringing it through different ranges of motion, and we're trying to dig out the deepest part, getting right into the capsule with these movements. I'm trying to create more space. So whether it's you're struggling to squat down and get the hips nice and low, well, doing this consistently and consistently challenging yourself, getting to the next level, should allow you to squat that deep and create that space and that extra range of motion is what we're looking for. So that's the HIIT 90-90 series. Now there is a few more exercises you can do to that, but that's all we're doing today. From now, what we're going to do is we're going to work on our hamstrings, and you're going to lie onto your back. So it's a nice easy one, this one. And what you're going to do is you're going to keep one leg, that bottom leg, you're going to keep that straight. With your hands, you're going to interlock the fingers, and if you bring your heel of the hands together, that's now a clamp, okay? So we're going to use that on the hamstring. So bend this top leg up, we're going to interlock the fingers, we're going to use the heel of our hand to clamp the hamstring. So we're getting a decent bit of meat here. Decent bit of meat, should I say. And when we do that, we squeeze that. Don't be afraid to actually dig the heel of your hand together. You're gonna, as you put the pressure in, you're gonna extend that leg. Once it gets fully extended, take a second, release the hands, reset the leg. You're gonna do that again. Pinch again, find a new spot, release. And what we're doing is we're trying to actually clamp a bit of the hamstring to stop it from stretching. Now, you're not gonna stop it completely, it's still gonna stretch. But the other half of that hamstring, 3 muscles in there, they're all gonna start stretching. They have to work a little bit harder because there's a clamp involved. And you go for 10 each side. And this is gonna help going into the next exercise, the Kang squat. That's a little bit more intense, but we'll see how we go with that. This just loosen up the hamstrings a little bit, free up a bit of movement. Once you get through 10, swap it over, make sure that bottom leg is actually flat on the ground. Don't bend it up. We want to test this top hamstring as much as possible. So, get your clamp again, dig in with the heel of the hand. Remember, you're not trying to press in towards the leg, in towards your femur. You're actually trying to squeeze, all right? Slightly different takes on it. So, pinch the hamstring, extend the leg, release, reset. 2 oars. Pinch, extend, hold, release, reset. So you'll notice your left and right may be slightly different. Often if you're a runner, you're gonna tend to feel this one a little bit more. Having tight hamstrings. Or not having that range of motion in them. So fully extend that leg. Move that hand around. There may be a few tender spots. Find those tender spots. Don't be afraid to attack them. All right, from there, you've got through your 10 each side. You're gonna stand up on your feet. I'm gonna stand slightly at an angle so you can see both front and the side. What you're gonna do is you're gonna bend the legs a little bit. So it's like we're dropping into a bit of a half a squat. I'm gonna put my hand underneath my toes. I'm gonna keep them there. They're anchored there. Now, if you still can't get underneath your toes, don't be afraid to grab your ankles. Even if you can't get your ankles, grab your shins. That's your anchor point. But just make sure we have that width in our feet. If the feet are too tight, it's not gonna work. So, 2 lines straight down from the shoulder, your feet should be on the outside of that. And what we're gonna do here, I'm gonna go back to my anchor point so you work back to yours. I'm gonna keep my hands there, I'm gonna drop my hips down as low as I can. Now that's gonna force my chest to come up. I'm gonna pin my shoulder blades back. So once we're here, you might get down all the way, that's all right, that'll come. You're gonna drive out with your elbows against your knees. So you're gonna feel your thighs stretching now. That's your adductors. Now, keeping the hands there, you're gonna kick the hips in the air and push the knees back as far as you can. And now we've changed the emphasis of the stretch to the back of our calves, or to the back of our legs, which are our calves, our hamstrings, and it's also hitting our back too. We're gonna hold that for 3 seconds. We're gonna squat back down again, chest up. Chest nice and proud in this one. And then we're gonna kick back up again. So that's 2 reps right there. We're gonna go for 8 more. This can be quite intense in the quads, the front of the legs, because they're under tension for quite some time, especially the bottom part of that. But take your time. You may hear a few clicks, cracks. That's all right. Unless they're painful, that's nothing to worry about. So each rep, you may even get further back with the legs or the knees and get to a point where you might lock out the legs. That's the ultimate goal. And try and, as you squat down, say you get your hips to the bottom, try and keep your feet flat on the ground. That's what we're looking for. If the heels come off, well, just regress it, sit up a little bit higher and make sure the heels stay on the ground. Now, as with everything, the more we do these consistently and with control, the better you're going to get at these. So perfect practice makes perfect. All right, so come up out of that. Once we got through our 10 reps, so you might be done a few seconds already. If you're not, keep going. But we're going to get into a high plank. All right, so a high plank is hands underneath the shoulders, extend the legs. So the only things touching the floor are your hands and feet. So from here, it's going to work your abs. You're going to feel your abs working here. Take your right foot. We're going to bring that outside the right leg, keeping the back leg as straight as possible. Now, this is where we mightn't actually get our right leg. Your right leg may be back here, maybe out to the side even more. That's all right. You may have to lift up on this side to get that leg out to there. That's absolutely fine. What you're going to do here, get the foot up as high as you can, regardless of where it is. And once we have that leg up there, focus on this back leg. Try and kick that knee up to the sky so that leg is nice and straight. We're going to rotate in towards the knee, open up with our hands, follow the hands with our eyes, and then back down. Now we're going to swap it to the left side. Exact same thing. Follow our hand with our eyes, close it, back down. We're going to do 10 of these each side. Now, these can be quite taxing. You will build up a sweat and you will start breathing quite heavy. So keep going. Fix my socks coming off there. So now what we're working on, front of the hip is of the back leg is the hip flexor. We're stretching that. We got the groin of the front leg. And we're also looking at that T-spine, which is our thoracic spine, or upper back. We're getting a bit of rotation towards that. So if that does hurt your shoulders, what you can do is put the hand behind the head and open it that way. But if you have no issues with that, keep going the way you're going. And once you get through your 10 reps, you're going to take a little rest. So they are quite taxing, as I said. They will get your breathing quite heavy. But my God, do they loosen up the hips. So once we get through that, we're going to go back onto our hands and knees into cat camel. So now we're looking at the spine as one. So you'll understand why they call it cat camels once you see what the motion is. So hands underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips. From here, we're going to take a big breath in. We're going to round our back as much as possible, nice and slow. And on the exhale, we're going to start bringing our belly button back down towards the floor and arching our lower back, or arching our whole back as much as possible. Big breath in again, rounded. Belly button to the sky. And exhale, chest out, arch in the back. You can guess which one's the cat, which one's the camel. Take our time with this one. So we're just trying to control that spine. And what we want to do with all of our joints, including the spine, not as a joint as such, but we want to be able to control those individually without bringing any other part of the body in and being able to move them well. There's no point in having little to no movement in those joints or those areas of the body. So once you get them working separately, well then we can start bringing them up together with the rest of the body and get the body moving pretty well. So there is a method to the madness. And once you get through 10 of these, nice and slow, don't rush them. It's very easy to rush these. And you say, you're getting bored. And you just want to get through it. Don't resist the temptation. Take your time. Trust me, you'll have a huge benefits. So what we're going to go now into is staying on the hands and knees, but we're going to look at our T-spine again. So I know we looked at world's greatest stretch, which is what we did in the high plank. I'm going to get you to drop down to your elbows. Staying on the knees, but elbows and knees is what we're going to do. Take your right hand, put it behind the head. Keep the knees nice and wide so you have a stable platform now. We're going to pick that elbow up and we're going to rotate. Head's going to come with it. Back down and redo it again. It's nice and slow. You got 10 of these each side. You may even feel your lat coming into that, stretching a little bit. That's all right. We are rotating the upper spine a good bit. And for all you golfers out there, this is going to help massively for your swing. Stop you coming up on the backswing. But even for everyday life. The full rotation as much as you can. You may find that you're getting a little bit more each time. And then swap it over. fix the top. We're going to the left side, another 10 reps here. And then we have one more block. I have 2 more exercises to go through. So on our elbows, hand behind the head, open up as much as you can, and back down. Now I can feel on my left side, it's a little bit more restricted. As I go through the reps, it may loosen up. It should loosen up and get a little bit further. Take your time. Think of it as oiling the joints, all these exercises. So even if you do have a spare 5-10 minutes, get through a series of HIIT 90-90s. Once you get good at those, well, you can do them all the time, but once you get good at those, you can start doing them by yourself. But you just got to be strict with yourself with all these little movements. So what we're going to do is going to finish about 2 more exercises. And we do have one where we work the right side, left side, and then move it on to the next exercise. Same thing again. So we're going to get down into a bit of a half a squat here. Not a full squat, just half a squat. We're going to take our left hand, put it inside our left knee. Right hand on the left hand. So you have a free knee moving here. That's fine. What we want to do is take our right hand. We're going to do T-spine rotations again. We're hitting it one more time, just in different angles. The more angles we can hit a joint in, or our spine, let's say, the better. So keep that left hand pushing against that left knee. That allows us to rotate up as much as possible and back down. You feel the shoulder blades come together, and then you're going to bring it back down. Now, if we take that left hand off the knee and you try it from there, well, you're going to notice you're actually going to turn that into a golf swing. And you're going to lose all that steady platform, or that strong platform in the hips. And now, because we're rotating, we're actually not rotating anymore through the spine. We're moving our hips, and it's actually keeping the same angle throughout that spine. So you got to keep that hand against the knee. That's going to keep your hips square. And the importance with any T-spine rotations, what we do is keeping the hips square. So you'd notice with the world's greatest stretch, you would notice it with our T-spine rotations on our knees and elbows. There was no way we could have rotated our hips through that. Now come up out of that. Once you get through your 10, you're going to swap it over. Other side, see the difference. My left side is feeling better in this angle. So keeping that pressure against that knee, don't let it come in. And this is another one for the golfers. And so this last one, what you're going to go through is going to be a shoulder one. We're going to finish off with something called wall angels. So if you do have a wall or a window, just get yourself right up against it. I'm going to bring the mat a little bit closer so I have something to stand on. So the way you're going to do it is you have a flat wall. Ideally, you can use a door, a big window. It could be anything. Just make sure it's flat. You have a bit of space. You're going to have your heels about 4 inches off the wall. Now, the 4 main pieces of contact against the wall is going to be your bum, your lower back, your upper back, and your elbows. And once we get this 90-degree angle, it's top for our shoulders and our elbows. We're going to keep our lower back in because that's the first thing that's going to go, and you'll notice that. We're going to bring our hands to the sky straight up as high as you can, and then you're going to bring your elbows back down towards your rib cage, keeping them all against the wall, and you go straight back up again. Nice and slow, bring it back down. And with each one, you're going to get a little bit higher and get more as you get more comfortable through this movement. We're going to go for 10 again. So if you are an expert or you're actually getting pretty good at this one, try keep your wrists against the wall. Makes it pretty damn hard. So once you have the wrists against the wall, you might notice your lower back comes off. So keep the lower back in, take the wrists off. You're not at that level yet. Got 2 more to go, and that will wrap us up. Nice and slow, bring it back down. Bring the hands down, shake it out, and you'll notice that you should be a lot freer than when you started. So, good work guys, and hopefully we'll see you again next week.